Hello and welcome to TAO Talk, Conversations from Our Ecosystem. TAO, short for Together as One, is the only social media platform that cannot sell out by design. It will eventually be autonomous, governed by its users, and all profit will be reinvested into the community. We're on track for a closed beta this month, April 2025. And in our spirit of community and connection, TAO Talks is where we speak with the thinkers, founders, and builders that are connected to the TAO ecosystem. Because this is more than a social media app, it is a movement. We are on the precipice of great change in our world, and there are so many of us working together to create this better, brighter, decentralized, democratized world in which power is returned to the people. We are the builders, the healers, and the stewards, and we are everywhere, which brings me to our guest today. Jay Friday is a UK-based storyteller, systems strategist, and co-founder of the Connection Engine, a global initiative uniting over 300 movements, building well-being economies, systems that prioritize community, care, and regeneration over extraction and endless growth. With a background in narrative strategy and community building, Friday works at the intersection of grassroots organizing, systems theory, and joyful solution-focused storytelling. The Connection Engine is a coordination tool designed to align fragmented movement around a shared flywheel action. Through a simple weekly framework, 5-minute, 15-minute, or 1-hour actions, strategic storytelling, and peer support, it helps people plug into projects that are already changing lives and building a future that works for everyone. Whether you want to join something local or launch something new, Connection Engine is here to help ordinary people become part of extraordinary change. Jay, so glad to have you here.
So glad to be here. So excited to be moving into the new future with you and helping facilitate the co-creation of that.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be alive. So start with a question that contextualizes a bit who you are and what you do. If you met someone at a bus stop and they asked, what do you do? What would you tell them?
I would say that I help create systems that change the story because there's a whole lot more going on in the world than you believe that is happening, that is creating a better world for everyone. Everyone is doom and gloom right now, but actually the solutions are all around us. And I'm here to connect us to those.
What say is all the stories in society? What story are we still stuck inside?
So currently, and it's actually a good place for the diagram to come in. I have a wheel. Do you want me to bring it up now?
I do. This girl loves her diagrams. My goodness.
I do. Okay, let's see if I expand this out. Is it? Oh, perfect. Okay, let's move past this one. So this is the flywheel. And at the top, you will see all the white space is our culture and our beliefs. And currently, we are at the top there, mostly stuck in the resistance phase, where people know, even if they're not outright with it, they know internally there is something wrong with our systems and they are being affected by it internally, subconsciously, physically, materially. And so the initial reaction when a system is putting pressure on you is to resist it in some way. And so this is where we're seeing all this unionizing, protesting, striking that's going on. And it's a completely normal reaction to a system that is completely off balance. But you're also starting to see a lot of people asking, well, none of this is working. What can we do to break this cycle? And this is where the rest of the flywheel comes in. Because, again, across all these domains, systems, technology, economy, ecology, commons, and wellness, there are so many solutions everywhere. People just don't know about them. They're on the mainstream media. All you hear are stories of resistance. You hear stories about collapse. The world's going off a cliff, but we have, collapse awareness that people have now, and they're just accepting that the world is just going to get worse and their lives are going to get worse and they have no hope. So that's where I feel like overall I've seen is where we're at, but it's not reality.
So tell us a little more about the flywheel. It starts with cultural resistance. And then where did these different categories come from?
Okay, let me back up a little bit.
Sure.
So just to understand moving from that resistance into these new systems, which is where the flywheel comes in, I have this leverage for change chart. That's a helpful thing to bring you into. If you want to do a deeper dive, Donella Meadows's leverage points in systems will give you everything you need to know on this. But this basically breaks down all systems into two categories. There are either survival-based, extractive-based systems, which dominate our world right now. And so usually you can tell if it's survival or extraction-based if it's for profit alone. So even most of our economies are based on GDP. Businesses are based on a bottom profit line where shareholders are extracting. They're actually disconnecting from that system. The incentives are disconnected, and then the whole system serves to make profit at the expense of our well-being, which is where these new systems come in, because we can actually create communities, businesses, governments that are based on well-being. And when we put that as the metric, that, in systems theory, changing the purpose of a system completely changes its behavior. When we are systems, and when we internalize seeking wellness over struggling to survive over a profit, that actually changes the way you as a system operate as well. So the way we're seeing this surface in society is the old systems we know internally are not working, are not supporting our wellness. And so that the ways that we have tried to work with that is through reform, through protests, through unionizing, through strikes. But these are all really low leverage in terms of system theory, that those systems are so big that these little levers we are pulling actually have relatively, it's input output. So if you're putting a lot of energy in, but you're not getting much out, because even, let's say, the best case scenario with unions, say you get what you want. Well, the fundamental system didn't change. It's still in place. So it's probably just going to be another battle down the road with, say, I like to bring this up as an example because there's a big movement in the rideshare industry, which at the titans in that are Uber and Lyft. There's now a drivers cooperative Colorado. There's also a rideshare union, a drivers union, who are working against Uber and Lyft. But that Uber and Lyft are going to be owned by shareholders. They're going to continue to be, and so they're going to be continuing to work against one another. Whereas we now have this federated rideshare movement. Drivers Cooperative Colorado is just one. They're actually working on implementing this in other states. There's one in Hawaii. There was one in New York. It's a whole emergent movement, and people are coordinating with Drivers Cooperative Colorado to actually bring that into other states as well. And if one of these if we got small groups of people to get $500,000 in funding, which is nothing, which is really nothing if you've ever been in business and seen how and got the system up and running and see how the cash comes out. It's nothing in funding. If we got these in major cities, then these drivers who are unionizing against the horrible extortive wages with Uber and Lyft, then they have somewhere to go. And with the cooperative, the money stays in the community. And if you look at the dollars, or the whatever kind of currency you use, when you have systems that come into a community, they're owned by shareholders that are completely disconnected from that community, geographically, communally, everything. They extract to the tune of, you can see it in the actual, if you look at the dollar, it's only like 13 cents out of every dollar stays in the community. When these corporations come in, whereas that number is 4 or 8-fold when the company is owned by the community. And keeping those resources in our community balances wealth inequality, and that balances everything. That solves all the problem, because you're getting people out of this survival mindset, out of fight or flight, into long-term thinking, into collaboration, not producing waste, just a number of cascading effects. So even unions without building these new systems, the old systems would stay in place. So if you look at the top of the chart, the new systems they can be as simple as helping each other. We see this actually, caregivers, people doing unpaid labor actually upholds the current systems now. They're just upheld by so much unpaid labor, especially in charities. Charities sort of subsidize in many ways the current system. Not that they're a model that can't be used, just depends on how you use it. And then the whole ecosystem of community wealth building, which is for-purpose companies, creative economics, government measures and well-being economies, regenerative economics. This is where we get the 300 names. They're the 300 different movements and these systems that are building structures, systems, which is the whole world is just one system. We have systems within it that are either extractive or they're regenerative, into pushing towards and creating more and more of those regenerative systems so they can get a critical mass, and then we can start to have a cascading effect of solving all the world's problems. But again, then at the highest leverage point that we can influence on others is everyone's beliefs, because you can't know what you don't know, and you definitely can't act on what you don't know. And so for this to get to critical mass, we have to get this out there in the culture. And that is where the flywheel comes in.
Wow, you're very good at breaking all this down, by the way, in like terms that are easy to understand. So love the diagrams, love everything. With community wealth, so are all of these 300 movements, are they primarily businesses? Are they co-ops? Or like, how would you describe the 300 that you cataloged? Also, where can we potentially get a full list if you have it?
I did have it published at one point. I'll have to redo it. I'm adding more I just discovered 2 more every day. Maybe I should do a story time here at this point, actually, because this is really interesting. And this is what anybody coming into the space probably goes through. And one of the biggest problems Connection Engine aims to solve is, so it was about 3 years ago that I arrived at, all of these, how these systems work together. I just got this epiphany, we'll say, without going into details. And so I immediately started looking for, I thought to myself, somebody has to be already doing this. This is so obvious. This is just a simple shift in the way our systems work. We can just change the story and everybody would do things this way. This only makes sense. And I started looking, and it was wild to me that the couple of I only found a couple at that point, and I went in those communities, and I was like, because at the time I was trying to kickstart an ethical gig economy in manufacturing. In order to like the model that worked, I figured, okay, we'll become a unicorn in 18 months. And then it will be so clear to the rest of the world that anybody who hasn't adopted this shift that we'll go from there. And so my emphasis has always been on action, creating these things. So I found a couple of communities that had this, that really understood this, creating this world based on well-being, post-scarcity, regeneration, etc. And I went in the communities and I was like, okay, who's building this? Who's building? Because I'm building this. I need help building this. I'm not a millionaire or anything. I need help. Come on, let's do it. Let's go. Let me collaborate on someone else's project that's doing this. Surely someone else is doing this. And I was told, oh, we're like an education platform. They were really confused. So we're here to educate. We don't do stuff. Oh, I was so shocked and so upset too, because I was like, all this stuff. Everyday people can't act on it unless you build the systems for them to vote every day with their time, with their money, with their communities for this better world that you're envisioning. You got to build it. And they weren't. So I went back to building. In the meantime, reaching out, and I found like, okay, so there are some people building, but also what the disconnect is that you have these people who theoretically, like these autistic, neurodivergent, especially mastermind individuals, have thought this out to a fine degree. And they have so many incredible solutions, and they have like done the math, and it definitely works and everything. And so they almost have a product, but they're missing in businesses. In businesses, you've got kind of two halves, and one doesn't work without the other, and one is definitely weighted to be more important. So you have the product itself, you have the thing that helps people, right? But without the marketing side, that never sees the light of day. And you can have a kind of a crap product, but it'll just get by. With good marketing, you'll rule the flippin' world. And this is what I've seen that's off balance in these 300 movements, these people who built brilliant solutions to today's problems. They're just not seeing the light of day. So people aren't focusing their time and energy in that direction. And so that's all about to change.
Yeah, exciting. So what you just said about a lot of people have really brilliant ideas and they never are given maybe the attention or the appreciation that they deserve, or they're not because they can't receive the funding or whatever, they don't become like real in the world, like fully tangible. I wonder if TAO might be able to help solve that a little bit, because we've seen how on TikTok ideas will go viral, right? Innovations will go viral. What if the platform could secure grants for the people? So there was like that double helix windmill that this guy had created in his backyard. It was a prototype, right? And it was beautiful. It looked like a sculpture, and it was far more effective than a regular windmill, which is not always energy efficient. It depends on what direction the wind is coming from. And so something like that, I wonder, I've always sensed that there is inverse problems in the world of startups versus content creators. And content creators are really good at like the marketing side of things, right? And like building the community and getting the audience. They're terrible at monetizing. Whereas on the other side, startup people or people who are innovators and thinkers, really good at creating the things that could sell but don't have the marketing. And there's some kind of partnership there. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I think that it could be quite powerful. And it's wonderful to see that you are connecting all of these people. So are you doing this through a website? Are you doing this through social media currently? Like, where is all of this coming to life?
Okay, so we're currently using Hilo. We're using Hilo to build out this flywheel as a place you can go. I don't know if you're familiar with Hilo, but it's kind of like School and Discord and Facebook all had a baby, only it was nonprofit and it was a commons and it was free. And it allowed, like, it has a map to discover. It's really good for place-based projects. Now, it is not good, like, if you are coming in here and marketing and trying to monetize an audience, that is not, Hilo is not the place for you. But especially for people who are doing community-based projects, bioregional weaving, regenerative economic zones, community wealth building, it is such an incredible, and even just little community groups who are aligned with well-being economy values, who are trying to build a better world. Hilo, you know, you're not paying $97 a month on school. So it's so it's a place you can do all the things you can do on Discord, Facebook, or School, because they're coming out with a knowledge commons that they're launching in May. So next month there will be a knowledge commons, and actually paths for you to take within whatever community you're in to give you first steps to adopt all the knowledge of a community. Which, if you're in the business world right now, School is really big in building communities, and extractive businesses are actually seeing people's need for community, and they are co-opting that a little bit. That's one of the big strategies, is to build a community you can monetize. And, you know, which we're attempting to subvert that. And so Hilo is an incredible sort of social media commons. They are talking about getting on the AT protocol. And is TAO, is that what you all decided?
Yeah, that's what we build on.
Okay. Okay. So they're not there yet. This platform is completely independent, but that's what's in the talks.
So circling back this a moment to school, I always thought the Hermosis have done business like so exceptionally well and ethically. So I'm curious what makes school an extractive model.
Oh, and I'm so thanks for pointing that. I don't know. They might not be, but getting in school, if you go to school platform, most of those are extractive. Look, if you come into this person's community, they're going to sell you this marketing course. There's no actual community support. And there's somebody there's a lot of get rich quick going on in that.
Got it.
The Hermosis can be completely on the level and, are making sure that their business practices are not extractive and that they are, but in the business world in general, even people with the best intentions who are still doing a hierarchical model, it can cause harm. So it's just something to take into consideration on both ends, that just because it's a mega corporation doesn't mean that or it's, very, very popular, or there's celebrities involved. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's instructive or that there aren't very good things that can come out of that. It's just something to know in general, but I shouldn't have cast a net so wide to.
We're right. No, I was just curious. So thank you for clarifying. I love that you are a unifier, but movements can be messy. So how are you navigating, for example, ideological friction among aligned but different groups?
So the goal of the flywheel here is these 300 movements, and you can see on the screen, fall into one of these 8 places, right? And so with mostly people coming in are going to be people coming in who are completely new to this. They don't know how to organize, build a business around something, monetize, market, all that stuff, that are actually, I mean, in a lot of spaces now where we are reframing business terms to be more helpful and less harmful. So for example, with the term networking, that has gotten kind of a bad rap, where you're networking just to build up your business and or lead generation or anything like that. When you go and you get leads for a business, that, like, these are actual people, right? So so you're not just getting leads in and networking to see if these people work for you, and then everybody else can, you're not going to do anything with them or help them or anything. So they have this new term called net weaving or network weaving. And so that is more about finding people who align with you. And then naturally there's no friction because your values aligned. So I sort of straddle these fences. I sort of straddle this fence between, I don't know if you've seen the Gary Stevenson, Daniel Priestley interview on Diary of a CEO. Really fascinating to watch, because you've got 2 guys. So Daniel Priestley has done really well, not quite as high as the Hermosis, but in the business world has done really well. And what he's done has definitely helped a lot of people. He wrote the book Key Person of Influence, and it's actually something some of us are using to gain more influence for good. So he wrote that. He is totally business. If somebody hadn't taught me business when I was young, I wouldn't have all this. Who knows where I would be? So he's very pro business, pro entrepreneurship, which is a good thing. So then you've got Gary Stevenson, who comes from a really deprived background, but he's like a super genius in math and stuff. So he worked himself up through these math competitions, eventually LSE. He became a trader, started making millions, but then he started looking around at all he could never make enough money to tangibly change all of his friends and his loved ones and the people from the deprived community that he came from, their lives. So he's really started pressing on wealth inequality is a huge problem. And his solution which is limited, because he doesn't know about community wealth or how we build wealth for ourselves, is to tax the wealthy. And so they got up there and they had this emergency debate. And you could see it was kind of sad for me to watch, because these guys were arguing against one another as though their perspectives couldn't work together. So Gary's example is, he's got the guy that, now that he's famous, that came up to him And the guy is like crying. And it's like, thank you for that validation, because I have worked hard all my life. And I've been told just work harder, just work harder. And it's just, it's not working. And I am struggling to survive here. There's suffering happening. And so Gary's looking at the people in Daniel's spot who are saying, you just need to work harder. You just need to be more entrepreneurial, and that'll allow upward mobility out of your social situation. So Gary's speaking to the systems themselves are not allowing for this upward mobility for everyone. So these are both outliers, and they're kind of arguing against one another. But there are actually, if we combined both of those perspectives, that's what community wealth does. So it says, if we focus on creating systems that are good for the well-being of all, we can adapt perspectives from so many different groups. So the people coming into this flywheel are people who are ready to make something happen. And so when you come in, it's just, first of all, making sure you are aware of the 300 plus movements or whatever that's out there. We're not going to dictate to you anything other than, be kind to one another. We prioritize well-being over survival. So please don't come in here trying to sell me your marketing course or anything extractive, right? So have that in mind. Number 2, alignment over agreement. So ideologically, we do not have to agree how this is done. People are going to have so many different ways they approach it. That kind of divides up. You'll fall loosely into one of those eight categories, but the exactly how, your opinion, that can be a topic of conversation, sure, but don't force that on another person. Let them do their thing their way. That's alignment beyond agreement. And the last one is transformation over resistance. So that is just the fact that we are moving from resistance towards creating something. Now, if you know, one of the most valuable things that if I'm in two worlds and it's the activist world versus the business world, but a really valuable thing we can take from the business world is that you get in those, rooms and those communities and those cultures, and there is a huge ideological political divide, and you wouldn't even know it because we are working together toward a shared goal. And this networking, what's good for you is good for me. We lift each other up. It's just an incredible space to be in. Meanwhile, I look on the activist space, and there's a lot of breakdown and really sad infighting over ideology. So that's something I want to help cultivate. But since Connection Engine acts as a flywheel, you're not meant to stay there forever. You're meant there to stay in here long enough for you to understand that there are 300 sources all around, whether you go into business, you go into some sort of activism or commonsing or whatever, or just a local community garden. Whatever you do, you're only staying in here long enough to find that and get a little help and support to go to it. So you're not coming in here to us all be on the same page ideologically, because there are so many different perspectives, and that just wouldn't work.
You had a quote that I found very interesting. You said, I've been far left and far right enough to know that they're both just methods of control. Real change will only come when people build the solutions themselves. So you are very much living that. What was that journey like? Because I also did the pendulum swing. And it's kind of like,
oh, that's fast.
Yeah.
I was autistic as a kid. And still now, obviously, but I was autistic and they didn't know it as a kid. They prescribed my autistic meltdowns and all my weirdness to high intelligence and trauma. So it was passed off. So I kind of was in this weird middle space where I was like too smart. She should know better. She doesn't really have any problems. And also too traumatized. So any of the weird stuff are just traumatized, right? And inside, I've always just had a deep need to feel belonging and friendship, like this ragtag group of friends in Ready Player One who set out I was a big gamer, who set out to do something good in the world, or the Goonies or something. And I always longed for that, but I couldn't make friends. I had the hardest time making friends, and I didn't know why. And so I have explored like all the spaces. And I went around and I tried evangelical Christianity, because those people. So it's interesting. I've lived in the South most of my life, and I in mostly conservative Christian spaces, and also lived an equal amount of time in like liberal atheist kind of spaces, and and many other things in between. And the core of both of these things was connection that allowed me to see the perspective that got those people to where they are, and to have empathy for that. If you ever, Dia Khan has this documentary called White Meets Right, where a colored woman, goes and has conversations with neo-Nazis. And you can see through the course of that documentary, having a relationship with her, how they kind of open up and you can see something shift. And then you can see that because they would lose everything to shift their mindset. You can also see there's one particular part in one interview late in the game with her, where I swear you can just see in his mindset where she asks a little bit more. You can see the shift where he'd lose his whole community, everything. Humans are wired for connection and belonging. And so that having been in a couple of different worlds there allows me to have so much empathy for all these ideologies, which I think deep down are about this connection and belonging. And that's why we're in them. And there's some value in all of them. And also none of them have the whole picture.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's that parable of the four blind men and the elephant, right? And none of them can see the elephant, and they all touch a different part of it. And they're like, the leg is like a trunk. The other one's like, the tail is like a rope. One grabs the side of it, and he's like, it's a wall. And they all have these different ideas on what an elephant is, but they all just have like a piece of the puzzle. And I think that's so often what we experience when we see these different ideologies. And rather than having these hard lines between them, like actually what are our connection points? What is our middle ground? And to your point about this woman going in these spaces and these people shifting their perspective, there's that Brene Brown quote that I love, that people are hard to hate up close. And so often, like, if you just spend time with people that you think you are so different than, we find that we have so many of the shared underpinnings. So I very much relate to that. I'm curious, when did you first realize, did you have like a moment where you realized that well-being economies could go mainstream?
Well, it might have been that, okay, yeah, it actually was January 1st. I had that video that went viral for me. It was like 140,000 views and that's, I'm not, I'm working on it, but being a charismatic speaker is a big part of going viral, and a really, really good storyteller. But something about that term definitely hit, because then I started posting on Substack using that framing of well-being economy, and those posts also thousands of likes consistently. And I thought about what this was. Well, in marketing, if you think about it, when people buy stuff, they buy stuff for health, wealth, relationships, and happiness across those domains. What are all those things? Those make up our well-being. Our physical and mental health, our wealth, which is what buys those things, or we think, but community also, we have more wealth than we think. Your relationships, something that fixes your relationships, your sense of your connection, which is your well-being, and your happiness, which is your personal develop, your growth, which is also your well-being. That's what people buy. That's what they're interested in. It's what about me and my well-being. So I think that is why that term kind of hit home, and it covers all of those bases without getting into, like, we have new economy, circular economy, sharing economy. These kind of words express values, which is great, and they express systems like circular. That's great. That's a thing. But when people buy stuff, it's what about me? And wellness speaks to that.
Lovely. Yeah, you've answered so many of my questions before I've asked them, which I love, because I think we're riding the same brainwave. One of my questions was actually, how did you land on well-being economy? But that makes complete sense. So
Yeah, and
very cool.
and another thing about well-being economy is that there's already an organization, the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, who's already been working in this space. And I love their shortened version is We All. So it's weall.org. If you want to go find out about the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, because it's about all of us.
Beautiful. Weall.com.
Or don't
How long has that been around?
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Yeah, I'd be curious. It seems like this is somewhat recent. Certainly recent in the States, I know you
It
mentioned.
is. We have the
Uh,
California hub, but it's more in Europe. So the economies that have adopted well-being economy measures are Iceland, New Zealand, Scotland, Wales, Canada. There might be one more, but those are the countries who have adopted measures into their governments for well-being
got it.
economies.
And you said Liverpool is for some reason a hub, right? Of all places.
Liverpool, people are usually blown away. Liverpool is incredible, but the people are usually blown away by when they go there, the community spirit and the looking out for one another. And so this is a couple of reasons. So Liverpool has been isolated in a couple of ways, and from isolation can actually breed solidarity. So one was the Hillsborough disaster, which was I don't know how to look up Hillsborough disaster. Basically, Liverpool got treated really poorly by the rest of the country. And then during the Thatcher era, like Margaret Thatcher had it out for Liverpudlians in particular for some reason. I don't know why. And then Scousers have been portrayed in the media and news ever since then as these scallywags, drug addicts. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. And it is, not a bearing on reality, because when people actually go to Liverpool, they're the friendliest people you meet. But in part, you do see this systemically when a geographically isolated population or a politically isolated and ostracized population, they actually develop that community spirit and that solidarity among themselves against these outward forces that serve to subjugate them, right? So putting a little pressure on the system actually isn't always a bad thing. That can lead to good things. So it's a fascinating place, and it is one of the UK as a whole has many well-being economy movements, and it was the home to one of the first community wealth building models in Preston, UK, which made drastic improvements in their environment, in their economy by systemically putting those measures in place. In Liverpool, we have a less strategic approach to it. We have the growing social economy, though, whereas Liverpool is supporting, and through the organization Kindred, supporting socially trading businesses, which are businesses that are pro-social in nature, or which is for our well-being, and instead of profit alone. So this can be anything from, in the UK, we have CICs, they can be limited companies that are just trading for a purpose. They can be nonprofits that are trading. They can be cooperatives, but anything is essentially being incredibly inclusive into what we allow in, which is the same thing with Connection Engine, as allowing for, not trying to dictate, well, if you're operating as a limited company or an LLC, then you can't possibly be for social good. Well, that's not true. There are many ways to go about solving the problem.
You had another quote that I really loved, which is, "A better world isn't just possible, it's already emerging." When did you first start to believe that?
When just through the last 3 years, I'm like, anybody coming into this now is me 3 years ago. But this being exposed to the 300 movements immediately is super going to accelerate your timeline with knowing what's possible, because people just don't know it. But in the spaces I'm in, especially like second renaissance. I've seen the bioregional weaving, the IPBS transformative change report that's gotten governments to adopt these like all over these practices. Um, the drivers co-op and the game theory behind how that's changing, the social economies that like everywhere I turn, people are working on solutions. And it's like, this is accelerating even for me. Like I'm in this space and I'm still finding new things every day that are changing the systems. So like welcome to my world, and that I'm still getting welcomed into on a daily basis. like
It's it's interesting. It's so widespread, but it remains so siloed. Do you know why that might be?
yeah, it's so lots of little independent movements. Again, I think it goes back to a lot of us are not when we tend to be solutions oriented, we might not necessarily have that marketing aspect. Now, there is one company in particular I want to point out that does have the marketing aspect. Oh, there's a couple better than any of the others. So you've got thousands and thousands and thousands of things going on. Only a couple with the marketing. So one is Help Bank, Simon Squibb. And so his platform, he actually gives all the profits away to fund people's dreams, which is them starting a business, right? And he's growing so rapid. Last I checked, like 14 million followers. And the reason this worked is because he didn't just give business advice on his TikTok. He actually switched to interviewing people on the street, asking what's your dream, and then giving money away, making it about them. And you'll see this is a really successful model. Simon says, if you want your dream to happen, then make somebody else's dream happen. And he's exemplified that. He's a marketing guy. He's a marketing genius. So he's using all these tricks in the book, like polarization, all these things to try to bring this out. He talks a little bit about community wealth and in some of his videos, but he doesn't make that explicit most of the time or upfront. Now, to be honest, that's what the approach most of us go for. So it's me jumping on YouTube and my TikToks telling everybody about the well-being economy. Well, like they don't know what that is. They're like, why should I be interested? What's in it for me? Most people get on these platforms where we receive all our advertising now. They want to feel something. And when you ask people what their dreams are, that makes you feel something. That makes you think about your dreams. So so we have that. We have Free Water has a creative marketing campaign. So that's really something to think about to get this more visible. We also have other strategies like partially there's just not a cohesive narrative strategy. And that's what, through the connection engine, we go through rhythms. So everybody in the network is sharing the same stories at the same time, which is frequency bias and familiarity bias, and working on all that in a coordinated way. Take this mainstream. There's just so many strategies, so many marketing strategies and storytelling strategies that haven't been implemented, or at least not to a critical mass.
You went and you pitched in front of Simon Squibb, sorry,
Okay.
Simon Squibb. And you pitched in front of him, and I think you won. I would love to hear more about that experience and how you ended up there and what the speech was about.
Yeah. So I don't know if I mentioned this, but like I went homeless trying to put that kickstart the gig economy and manufacturing. Right. I ran out of runway. But I was very YOLO, this is going to change the world. So, and I have no, sense of personal safety when it comes to matters of change in the world. So I've survived because of my community and because of fundraising, and because this was specifically, this platform was going to start out helping neurodivergent and disabled people, which is, my community that understands me and me them. So they fundraised to get me there because they understood the value of specifically creating systems that support us. Because we definitely, I have never been able to work a normal job. I've never even lived independently except for like 8 weeks in a trailer in the middle of a field with holes in the floor. It was a disaster that somebody rescued me from. all of those things, we may look normal on the outside, but this regular 9 to 5 doesn't fit us. So I approached. I know you kind of have to niche down when broaching these topics too. So I approached it from that lens, trying to get it kickstarted there, and they fundraised to help me get there. And the idea is he would help us go viral because he's spreading community wealth. I saw in his messaging. So here's me. He would want to do everything possible to also, because I have some parts that like they're missing because anyway, just getting in the disability neurodivergent community, when you make these things accessible for us, they're accessible for everyone. And the current business models, the way things are, Simon's taken a huge step towards making them accessible by trying to make all this business knowledge currently free. But there are support systems in the platform that could be built in where we could come in with our perspective, combine efforts, and for me to come out and have more influence and thought leadership on community wealth in general. So that was more explicit. And so I went up there and I gave the speech. And I had 60 seconds, but I went 90. It was just it was a short thing, a short competition. And I was and he saw in it that we were on the same page because he chose me and I won. They had a community selected one and a Simon selected one. And I said, great, we're going to go viral now. I'm going to stop being homeless and we're going to, and then community wealth is going to get out there in the culture all at the same time because it's going to, and I waited and I waited and I waited. And he didn't share my story. And I showed up in the community and I was like helping over and over. And I was thinking this was going to happen at some point. And I was in the community for like a year and a half. And I finally reached out to them. And I think that they still think it's a bit too radical, which is why they won't help. Even though he talks about it, it just keeps it kind of on the down low. So apparently it seems too radical. But I'm thankful for that because that has allowed me to reframe the approach to be distributed, not with one influencer, not with me, Simon, and then hopefully we get a few more bigwigs on, but we can actually share these stories around, you can share this story with your 500 followers. We can share it and we can grow. It's kind of that law of diffusion of innovation thing, go where it flows. We already have our true believers here. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. And then we can share this with more and more and more people. So we've also got a strategy in place where we're taking to people who are already aligned. Like I've spoken with Grace Blakely, who is, she's a leftist political commentator and journalist, and she's written some books, Vulture Capitalism, stuff like that. And so taking a reframing with her, yeah, actually, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Again, back to the Dick, Gary, and Daniel conversation. Actually, we can build these systems ourselves. And a lot of the skill of doing that is through entrepreneurship, marketing, etc. So then basically grow our influence as a network with influencers and be able to actually establish relationships with them because you can't establish a relationship with Simon because that's like getting in touch with the president, right? But if we use, again, Daniel Priestley's model, key person of influence, you reach out to people with larger and larger audiences. Like you get on podcasts with, 100 followers, and then you go and get on podcasts with 1,000, and you slowly grow that. And you have those conversations and connections with people, which allows them to be interested in looking at this well-being economy thing. And then they share it with their audiences. And if that helps them go viral, like my video did by framing it as, hey, we could have an economy on well-being, that makes sense. Hey, instead of resisting, we can just build stuff. Like literally the world is created by us and our beliefs, and we shift those beliefs and we create new things, and we can figure this out. We can free up our time and energy to creatively problem solve as a species and figure these things out together.
Love it. Beautiful. I'd love to see the rest of the deck if you're open to sharing.
It's not ready. It's going to be a video. We're probably going to record it tonight. I would send it your way for sure. But I know we've just got a few minutes left, but I wanted to point out the genius together as one, because I think that this, like, I feel like the different things we're doing and doing this by the way you're doing, like on Reddit. Okay, so we're doing the logo. Now everybody puts in their input at the same time, this process, and then we put out the story, and then we get everybody talking about it and their input at the same time. And then we can loop those things back in, right, down the road and have like some spaced repetition. This really speaks to like emergent strategy and is it emergent synchrony? Do you know what happens when like crowds form a wave, or when like flocks of birds all turn at the same time, or when you have metronomes on the table and all of a sudden they just get in?
Oh,
I feel like we're creating the containers for more of that to happen. And that's really exciting for me.
That is exciting. Yeah, I think there's something really powerful about doing it in a way that is crowd powered. And it's interesting, like with the logos and the name, all of that was crowdsourced, right? And it's interesting. I've gotten sometimes a little bit of pushback from designers being like, well, everyday people don't know. And I'm like, but they do, because everyday people are the audience. Our audience isn't designers, like, of course it has to come from people. So I'm really pleased with what we landed on as far as a name. And it's funny too, together as one, TAO. So it kind of has the connotation of the Taoist philosophy, which is all about interdependence and harmony.
Mhm.
It means human in Tagalog, and it also sounds a lot like DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, which we will be. So the TAO. Just funny how that worked out. It's like beautifully synchronistic, and only the crowd could have done it.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it.
Okay, so second to last question. Finish this sentence. The world we're building is.
Emerging. The world we're building is whatever we imagine it to be, whatever we're going to create it to be. Like, I want to take that back and not dictate what it is, because it's
It's fun
what
with it.
that is.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I think emerging is the perfect word for that. Yeah, I think it remains to be seen, but I'm glad to connect with people like you who are very optimistic and hopeful about the future and actually doing something. Because, a lot of people they talk about starting businesses, or they talk about doing something about what's happening in the world, the state of the world. And not everyone shows up, and it's like a different flavor of human that does. So I'm grateful for you. Is there anything else you would like to share with us? Anything I failed to ask?
Oh boy, I don't know. There's so many. We could go on for like 4 hours.
In that case, where can we find you?
The remedy for despair is action. So we can help each other continue to take these steps. We're on the way to emerging something really beautiful.
Perfect. And where can we find you?
jfriday.com has all the links.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for your time, Kiara. It was genuinely a pleasure.